So Sherman goes from Ohio to Missouri. Bull goes to Ohio. Halleck goes from New. This week, the past catches up. On the 15th, Brigadier General William Tecumseh Sherman leaves for St. Louis, Missouri, because Brigadier General Don Carlos Buell has arrived to take over as head of the Army of the Ohio. The Army of the Ohio has so far been a relatively quiet position on the map due to Robert Anderson's general unwillingness to do any sort of action and Sherman's uneasiness towards the position. Will Buell keep up this tradition? Also on the 15th, another rebellion in Tennessee, specifically Chattanooga, Tennessee. The important thing about Chattanooga is that it is a railroad hub for a majority of the southern Confederate states. It is a reminder about how small the infrastructure is for the Confederacy, that a rebellion, even as small as this one that is easily put down, is still a major threat to their supply line. On the 18th, the Confederate Congress says when it will begin its next session in Richmond, Virginia, February of the year 1862. R.M.T. Hunter will be the President pro tempore of the Senate, and Thomas S. Bocock will be the Speaker of the House. On the 19th, the Battle Hymn of the Republic is written down. Also on the 19th, Major General Henry Halleck arrives in Missouri, taking over from Major General John C. Fremont. Fremont left Halleck a pretty good position. Major General Sterling Price of the Confederacy has retreated to Arkansas. The few small pockets of Confederacy that remain within the state are manageable. Will Halleck be able to take advantage of this superior position? For the last thing on the 19th, we must travel to Indian Territory. Opothleyahola? Opothleyahola? I'm not good with pronunciation of Native American names, but Opothleyahola is Muskogee Creek. He and his followers are Unionists in a staunchly pro-Confederate area. While it is unknown exactly how many followers he has, it is a diverse group. Some are just runaway slaves looking for protection. The other come from a diverse group of Native American tribes: Muskogee and Locopaca Creek, Comanches, Delawares, Kickapoos, Seminoles, Wichitas, and Shawnees. But, be they runaway slave or Native American, Colonel Douglas H. Cooper, leader of the Confederate Indian Territory, sees them as a direct threat to his position. Cooper assumes that Opothleyahola has around 1,700 armed men. Even if he had 1,700 men, which is unclear, there's no way they would all be armed. Many are women and children, and even if they were all men, they really doesn't have the weaponry to equip them all. But this doesn't matter to Cooper. They are a threat. So on the 15th, he sets out with his brigade made up of Choctaw Chickasaw mounted rifles, 2 detachments of Creek rifles, a detachment of Seminole infantry, and a detachment of Texan cavalry, numbering around 1,300 men total. Their goal? To either disperse the Unionist group or force them from Indian Territory. And on the 15th, he reaches Opothleyahola''s camp, and is deserted. Wait, I thought there was a battle. No. For 4 days, Cooper is left in the dark, but on the 19th, he captures some of the stragglers from Opothleyahola''s group, and he learns of the new camp. He shouts towards it, sends his cavalry charging in, and it is deserted. Come on. Cooper then sees some more stragglers running towards the forest, and he sends his Texans after it. But little do the Texans know that where they are charging into is not just a few stragglers, but Opothleyahola main force. It is only once they reach the trees that they realize their mistake. The Confederates clash with the Unionists, and right as the sun falls, the Texans withdraw. Cooper can't attack the force because it's night, but that doesn't stop Opothleyahola. His forces move towards the Confederate positions at... We don't know. What? Yes, there's actually a dispute over where this battle happened. Either Yale, Oklahoma, or Keystone. According to Angie Debo, an Oklahoman historian, it is more likely Yale, Oklahoma than Keystone. Opothleyahola gets within 200 feet of the Confederate force, and the battle turns strongly against him. His forces are outgunned, badly organized, and most likely outnumbered. He is forced to withdraw. He cleverly has his men set fire to the prairie grass, creating a pseudo-smokescreen to cover their retreat. The next day, the Confederates come across the Union camp and... it's deserted. Big shock. Though, they do get to claim victory by this. The Union lost, according to the Confederates at least, 110 men either killed or wounded. According to the Confederates, this terrible battle cost them 6 men, 4 wounded, and 1 missing. Likely story. It's devastating to Opothleyahola, but not decisive. On the 20th, it seems that Reverend Mark Watkinson's prayers are answered because the Treasury Secretary, Simon Chase, tells the Philadelphia Mint, "The trust of our people in God should be declared on our national coins." The same day, Kentucky leaves the Union. I mean, that can't be right. On the 18th, John C. Breckinridge calls 116 pro-Confederate delegates to pass the Ordinance of Secession. John C. Breckinridge is a U.S. Senator, not the governor of Kentucky, so this has even less legitimacy than the previous secessions. After a few days of running away from the advancing Union forces, they find a place where they can pass their Ordinance of Secession. An entirely new government is created. The capital, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Bowling Green is currently in Confederate hands. An entirely new leadership is picked. Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, even the Treasurer. But, as I said, this has even less legitimacy than normal, and the populace is not with them. Kentuckians scoff at the idea of joining the Confederacy, so this breakaway government has an upward hill battle to fight. Then, of course, there's Dan Sickles. This week, his regiments are renamed to the 70th, 71st, 72nd, 73rd, and 74th New York. Wait a minute, haven't I been calling his regiments by these numbers? Yeah, this change is pretty predictable. You see, before his was U.S. volunteer regiments, but that's not the typical naming convention. You see, each state has a quota to meet when it comes to giving members of their state to the Union Army. And for the New York to reach its quota, it needs New York men to be registered as New York men. So, Governor Morgan makes a switch, very predictably, and, well, Sickles went from an All-American to just a New Yorker. No, I'm kidding, he's still an American hero. This week, I know not a lot happened, so I think it's a good time for us to take stock. Sherman might no longer be in charge of the Army of Ohio, but he is still marching on. The Confederacy might have internal strife, but it is still marching on. Henry Halleck and Union forces in Missouri are marching on. Most of all, the truth that people have been willing to die for, that the United States is one nation, indivisible, well, that truth is marching on. Hello! It's literally the entire Civil War week by week team here. This time, in a spiffy costume. Now, if you liked the video, please click like. If you want to see more, you should be seeing around now a recommended video for those of you with low commitment. For those of you with slightly higher commitment, there should also be a playlist of the entire war up till now, plus this week's episode. And if you want to see more, or the entire Civil War depresses you, and you're very worried, so you don't want any information about the possible Confederate invasion, which is coming right towards you, Maine, then don't subscribe. But for those of you who are willing to defend Maine, which is in imminent danger, please subscribe. For those of you who disliked the video, you're probably a traitor. Lincoln!